Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Out of Interest podcast. Today I am joined by Andrew, Sarah, and Bryce of the 178 Blank Productions team. For those of you that don't know, 178 Blank Productions was founded on the idea that everyone can make movies and everyone should. They are a Bay Area-based film company dedicated to empowering first-time filmmakers with the opportunity to realize their artistic visions. So, to put it in a nutshell, you're an indie studio, but you're an indie studio, right? It's like bare bones. Yeah. So just to start off, this is kind of Bryce and Andrew, who are the co-founders, correct?
Correct.
So how did 178 Blank, how did it come to be? How did you come up with the idea for it?
All right, so it's all started in November 2018 when my friend and I just came together and decided that we wanted to write a movie. Their parents gave us some money. We were able to create something together, and a lot of it was like all our crew were people that we just knew that had no experience. Like, hey, do you know how to run sound? No. Okay, great. Come to set tomorrow. And that's how we met like most of our crew. The thing was a lot of like all the equipment wasn't actually ours, and we had to go like 40 minutes away to go get it. So I saved up, Andrew saved up, we got our own stuff, and the crew from that film eventually got together and started to continue making stuff. Andrew, if you wanted to add on to that.
Yeah, I on the more businessy side of it, I guess, we sort of the official beginning, if you will. I was in New York City sometime last fall for an industry convention for audio engineering, and I was just walking around the streets of Manhattan and talking with Bryce, and I thought we should start a production company. And so I said to Bryce, we should start a production company. And he's like, I've been wanting to start a production company. I like have this thing, 178 Blank Productions. And I said, yes, let's take that thing and run with it. And so we took that thing and ran with it. And that's how we got here.
So I think a key component of your production studio is the age of everyone in it, right? You guys aren't industry professionals. You're not 30, 40 years old. You're in your 20s, some of them late teens. Like it's, that's impressive in itself. So I wanted to ask you, Bryce, you mentioned about the first movie that you did. Well, what was that first project?
So the first project we did wasn't actually under the 178 Blank name. It was under XMX Productions, just because we were underneath someone else's funding and not our own. It was called Audible Chaos. You can find it on YouTube. And it was the co-writer and I, Zaya Leith, we don't know anything other than being teens, like in terms of life experience. Mm-hmm. So all our characters that we wrote were teenagers. And then all the people that we knew were also teenagers. And as a result, like we ended up having this very young group of artists coming together to create something. And I think our oldest person right now is 21, and they're only a couple months older than I am. And our youngest is 17, and that's Sarah. And that's part of what feeds into it is I didn't have an opportunity to make movies in high school. Like when I got to college, I never considered being a film major because I didn't have that sort of gateway open for me. And so our mission kind of became like providing those opportunities to high schoolers and people entering college that might not have had that sort of experience before, because it's absolutely magical if you've never done it before.
Yeah, so Sarah, you also worked on Audible Chaos with XMX.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that project?
Well, so for me, Audible Chaos was like the first experience with film that I had. It was like the first time I'd ever been on any sort of set. The only sort of experience with acting or anything like that had been like a play that I'd done like literally just a few weeks beforehand. And that's where I actually met Bryce. And that's how I got into it. And honestly, that summer, I learned everything in terms of what I know now about film, and not in terms of like, you know, technical skills and that sort of thing. But I would say that summer and that project was really what made it for me in terms of sort of leading me into film as a passion and as a potential career path. Because I really, on that set, because it was so small, I really learned how to do everything. I ended up doing like sound, I ran slate, I was an actor, I went and like dispatched stuff for people, I held boom mics, I did almost all of the jobs that you could find aside from like, you know, directing on a very small set. And so in terms of what I learned, yeah, I would say really for me, it was just the gateway into film, which is really just what we want to ultimately provide for other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, that ties really nicely into the next question. Andrew, I wanted to ask you about this.
Mm-hmm.
So 178 Blank, they have, well, you guys have an initiative called the Louder Voices Initiative. And this allows for people's voices to be heard by using your platform, whether it be through using their ideas or a mock script. To me, this is amazing because it's a direct gateway into the indie filmmaking industry. How did you come up with the idea for the Louder Voices?
So yeah, that's been sort of a core part of our mission in this phase of our development, because like I say, we started, you know, basically Bryce and I had the idea to do this, but this isn't something that we can do on our own. And so then the Louder Voices Initiative is sort of the next step in our growth. After Dino's Kingdom, which was our first project, we sort of took a step back and wanted to figure out how we can take this forward and make it grow into something real. And a part of that is us sort of looking at what we were doing and trying to figure out how we could do it responsibly, and try and figure out how we can use what we're doing for the greatest good. And so that's sort of where the Louder Voices Initiative came from, was this idea of, we've created this platform for ourselves to give ourselves a voice creatively. What if we sort of took that and distributed it, opened it up to people whose voices need to be heard more than ours? Because sort of we're in an era right now, specifically in these last few months, where we've seen such a divide in society between people who can have their voices heard and people who can't. And historically, film has been a really powerful voice for those who have access to it. And oftentimes that means whoever big Hollywood producers want to tell a story about. And so the Louder Voices Initiative is sort of our opportunity to put that creative access, to take away the gatekeeping bias in film, and sort of put that tool in the hands of anyone who believes that their story is worth sharing, anyone who thinks that they have something to say or a perspective that isn't being heard. We're here to make that possible.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you've gone about that is through your screenwriting contest that you're currently running. Deadline, I think, is the end of the month, end of August.
Yes, August 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
To be precise, yeah. And this is a great way for young writers with an idea and a talent to get their project made by the team at 178 Blank. How important was this competition to growing your brand in particular?
It was pretty important to us, like in many regards, because when we had an unexpected like amount of publicity come from our social media, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point, but we had an overwhelmingly positive response to like our content that was being created, and a lot of people wanting to get involved. At the time when we chose to launch the contest, we had launched a Google form, and we had 1,000 people reply to it at that point in time and wanting to get involved, and from all over the country. And so the screenwriting competition was a way to sort of remotely get those 1,000 people involved somehow. Because realistically, well, most of those people wanted to write, but there's no way that we could like feasibly look through that many original scripts and like ideas all over the place. So we thought that the screenwriting contest would be a great way to engage with the community and get original content produced like specifically for us and all within like the same realm. And it's been like, it's probably like the first like step that we've taken majorly towards our mission of bringing in as many people as possible. Yeah, and if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I wanted to add on specifically towards the design of the contest. We structured it in the form that we did of having it be 2 separate phases. So for those who don't know, phase 1 concluded about 2 weeks ago, I think, where we took submissions from anyone and everyone for log lines, basically just 1 or 2 sentence pitches of what the story would be about in very general terms. And then phase 2, we pick 5 of those log lines that we think are the most creative, the most interesting, have the most room for good storytelling, feed them back out to the community, and take in screenplays from anyone who wants to submit one. And so the reason for that was, we didn't really want people to submit their baby, this project they've been working on for 5 years, and then have it be rejected, because that stings. Trust me, I know. And so basically we wanted to have a blank slate and an equal footing for everyone to not have to come up with, this award-winning idea. You take this thing and make it your own. You make it interesting for you and tell us who you are as a writer. Because that's a lot of what we wanted out of this, was not only to get the screenplays, but to get the writers. And it's important for us to know, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? And so that's what sort of led us into this direction with the contest.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the best ways, in my opinion, to learn who someone is to get them to write something for you, because people, pour themselves into that stuff. And especially when it can be submitted like over the internet and stuff, although there can be a little bit of anxiety about who's this getting sent to and stuff. I find people are a lot more willing to just tell you stuff if it's through a Google form or through a TikTok comment or whatever. And so we touched on your TikTok account, or Bryce did a little bit, but it's garnered over 25,000 followers. It's got over 500,000 likes, and the Instagram account has got around 1,200 followers as well. So Sarah, this is kind of directed towards you because, you're the current chief of marketing at 178. So how do you plan to handle future growth on social media?
Well, first of all, I think we still have yet to see the full effects of the growth we've already experienced. Social media has had a huge influence, I think, on how we've been able to grow. But seeing as, the screenwriting competition still isn't over, we don't have a ton of work out yet. I don't think we've necessarily been able to see the effects, that first sort of influx of attention. But I think that in the future, it will have a huge effect on it, just because it's the first time we've really been able to get out to a larger audience than we had before.
Yeah, I think that's, I think what's really important for 178 and what's really appealing about your brand is your age. Like, if, for example, I think if someone like Steven Spielberg had a TikTok account to promote his new movie, people are going to just go, why does this exist? He has millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. He doesn't need it. But TikTok's free, and you guys have managed to, grow your brand on TikTok and through your short films on YouTube. So how do you I don't know how much thought goes into it. To be perfectly honest, I'm not a chief of marketing for anything. But how much thought goes into the content that goes on your social media? Like, how do you decide what goes on?
Yeah, answer that, Sarah.
I have to say, like, to be honest, a lot of it is really just, I'd say a good percentage of it is following trends. Like, okay, as a teenager, as someone in, you know, this day and age in quarantine, having to spend a lot of time on the internet, I spend quite a bit of time on TikTok, just kind of scrolling through. And so I'd say a lot of our content is influenced by just like what's trending and seeing how we can apply that to our work. Like, for example, I think this is a good example. There was one trend that was going around where it was called like hashtag like not the one. And it was this trend where the scenario is somebody coming to meet their significant other's like parents for the first time. And the idea is like, and the original template was someone being like, oh, you must be this girl that my son's been FaceTiming every night. And then it cuts to like the person holding like an Android, like implying that obviously they couldn't be FaceTiming. And so this trend kind of took off. And what we did with it is we used it to promote our most recent music video, Buzzkill. And we took that and ran with it and kind of turned it into, oh, you must be this girl that my friend, or you must be the friend that this girl's been going to all these parties with. And then it cuts to a couple clips in the music video, implying that the plot and the music video is going to surround this idea of someone being very introverted. And so that was a very long-winded way of saying that our kind of goal in terms of creating content is just combining what's popular and combining our own work. I will say TikTok has forced us to be a little bit
it angers me how, sorry, I interrupted you. Go on, Sarah.
It's okay. Bryce has expressed this many times to me in his frustration, and honestly, I'm right there along with him. It's kind of forced us to put ourselves in this box of like what's trending. In an ideal world, we could just post our work and post our favorite moments and favorite clips from the stuff that we produce or behind the scenes stuff. But really the algorithm with TikTok and like TikTok as a platform, and apparently what our followers like, has sort of forced us into this thing with like following trends. In terms of how I've been choosing to go about it, I'm really just kind of biding my time, because as I've seen, smaller creators need these trends in order to sort of boost their popularity. And then once you reach a certain point, you're able to sort of expand what you can post and do well with. But yeah, in terms of what I use to decide, it's a combination of the things, but that will again change as we continue to grow.
There we go. Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah, it wouldn't be an episode of Out of Interest if something didn't go wrong. Okay.
It wouldn't be a 178 blank production if something didn't go wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is an accurate reproduction of a 178 blank set.
Of our sets, yeah.
We're getting better.
So
yeah, we're getting better.
Yeah.
Back on the TikTok real quick, a great example that just makes me so, I spent 2 hours working on this one TikTok. Sarah asked
this is good.
to promote our interest form. I spent 2 hours like getting video of myself, doing a voiceover, sending it off to her. It got like under 2,000 views. And I was like, okay, not bad. And then she texted me, she's like, what if I just put text over a time lapse of some clouds? Like hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of comments all at once. And it was just clouds and text. And I was hitting my head against the wall, and I vowed never to make a TikTok again. Although I didn't learn my lesson because I tried one more time and it had similar results.
You know, I'd like to think that happened because I'm just like a marketing genius, but honestly, that's a really good example of how like there's no way to predict what will do well. And it also just kind of reaffirms this like running joke just amongst people who make things on TikTok that like you will be rewarded for putting in less effort. And that's a frustrating thing on TikTok, but it's also a really good thing to know when you're trying to market through this platform.
It's also a running joke in our like company now that we can't have my face in any TikToks or else the views tank and I show up.
Bryce is bad for our brand.
So yeah, the kind of, you know, speaking of Bryce, at least, just over a week ago, you released your first short film on an average day. I I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
It was, so let me just, it was directed, written, edited, and scored, and you were the cinematographer.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of work, but can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for it?
So I co-wrote it with my friend Madeline, who I go to school with at USC. We're both acting majors, and we were having a conversation. 178 Blank had already been established, but we didn't have any summer plans at this point. And Madeline and I were talking, and we realized that because of school going online, we don't have any material for our actors' reels. And I'm more interested in being a director and a writer. So I was like, hey, Madeline, what if we just like made material instead? And she was really down for the idea. So we wrote a script based on our experiences coming home from school, and finding out that people we knew aren't the same as the people that we left behind. And it was mainly a test to see if we could safely film something during quarantine. Because this was back late May, early June. So on set, we were super socially distant, masks on for all the crew, sanitizing like every half hour or so whenever we took a break. And it really was just like a way for us to gauge like how feasible is it for us to keep to make art right now. And it turned out, I'm really proud of how it turned out. Like you mentioned, I did do like most of the work for it. We are looking to finding people to cover those jobs for us.
No more editing.
No more
editing.
I can't do it anymore. But because at the time our workflow wasn't super designed for us to hand off a bunch of video files to someone else to edit. But we've slowly like gotten more equipment and software, and like now we're getting to the point where we'll actually be able to hand off all the stuff that we filmed to someone else, and they'll actually be able to piece it together. Because none of us are film majors. We never like had a standard to adhere by. We just did whatever worked. And what worked for us isn't really what people are used to. And it would have been a nightmare for us to hand off all those jumbled audio and video files to someone else. But we're at the point now where we're actively looking for an editor to work with us and color correctionists.
Yeah, and to add on to that, if I may, I think it's also sort of I guess to Bryce's point about the fact that none of us went to film school, we're all, especially Bryce and I, and those in the team who have more actual experience with indie filmmaking, we learn coping mechanisms more than you learn convention. And so, you know, there's definitely skills that come along with that. You know, we're missing exactly one shot from our most recent project, which I'm editing, and it's not a problem because I've had to reconstruct a 10-minute short film using 5 minutes of footage, half of which is bloopers. There are skills that you learn on the grimy streets of indie filmmaking, but what that means is that when you try to bring different people together who have learned different lessons, it's sort of difficult to mesh. And so admittedly, there have been times where Bryce and I butt heads on certain things, or where he's like, what are you doing? That's completely wrong. But it's not, because no one really knows what they're doing.
It's so great. And the other thing about Andrew and I is that our styles are similar, but just slightly off in like the most minor ways. So we can really like tell the difference between each other. And it's like, oh, you're doing that wrong. But it's like, no, but I'm doing the Bryce way right now. That we've like actually like coined terms for like, oh, we're doing this shot Andrew style, or
oh no, he's doing a Bryce ending again. Why always the Bryce ending?
The Bryce ending, the traditional Bryce ending is to roll credits over something that is happening still in the film. So kind of like how in Call Me by Your Name, it ends with the credits roll over Timothée Chalamet. That's how I end every single film that I direct, is that the credits roll over something actively or like passively happening on screen.
Which is sad for me, because I've just realized that Dino's Kingdom is also going to end in a Bryce ending.
Even though I didn't direct it.
You got to concede on some points, though. I think that's a small
Yeah.
We work together really well. For the few times that we butt heads, we stick together really well as a team.
Yeah.
both Andrew and I and Sarah and I and Artie and I and everyone else that works with us, we've got a really good mesh of people together, and we're all very good listeners and receivers of feedback.
And
yeah, and I would argue a lot of that comes from also, because I think it's important to point out that part of the reason what we do works so well is that we're also all really good friends, and so we're not just a company, and I think that's what allows us to be successful, even though we are so small. So
Yeah.
I think that comes back to the point of being able to work well together and like meshing.
Yeah, a key thing that that we used to do bonding a lot, mainly last summer, before we were officially 178 blank, but we'd go and grab our skate
Jackbox games.
Yeah, and we'd go skate around together and make cool little skate video edits. And we still do that kind of, but it's mainly just like hanging out in parking lots and listening to music.
And Jackbox games. Jackbox games.
And I think also, if I may add on to that, I think it's sort of a testament to why everyone's here, because no one jumped on the 178 bandwagon to get rich. No one's here because they want to get their name in the papers. And we have a really, really great team of people who like being on set and like making films. And I know I personally, I work myself to death on every set because that's the fun of it. And we've brought together a team has brought itself together of people like that, people who love doing what we're doing. And that's why I think we work so well, and why I think we're having the success we're having right now is because we're all here because we're passionate, and there are a lot more people out there who are passionate in the exact same way.
And I mean, that's really well put. Really well put. I think that it's key. You have to like the people that you work with, and you have to be passionate about what you're doing. So just one last question to finish off this episode. Each of you, where do you see 178 Blank Productions in 12 months' time?
All right. In 12 months' time, I'll have graduated college, and I would like for 178 Blank to be at least a part-time job, necessarily. Not necessarily that I want to make a profit off of it, but I want it to be an established business that money goes into and goes back into producing films, commissions, etc. I really want 178 Blank to be the reason, or to be a reason, that people don't try and move to LA or Atlanta or to Chicago. There's such a conception or a misconception that the only places you can do film or have a career in that sort of thing or do anything of that sort of art, you have to be in one of the big cities. And we're just a bunch of kids from little Redwood City, California. I'd like 178 Blanks to be popping up everywhere. They don't even need to be under our name, but just the idea that anyone can get together and make something. I want that to be taking off more. So I'd like the idea of 178 Blank to take off more than the actual 178 Blank too. I mean, both would be nice, but we're in this to bring people in. And as long as people are realizing their passion, we're doing a good job.
As for me, I mean, almost diametrically opposed to Bryce. In 12 months' time, I will be entering college. And so what 178 Blank will look like for Bryce in 12 months is going to be very different than what it'll look like for me. But that's also because our experiences with 178 have been incredibly different. 178 Blank for me was the reason that I got into film in the first place. It's the reason that I am now considering it as a career path. And so what I would like 178 Blank to be 12 months from now is to be that for other people as well. I want it to be the reason that people get invited to set one day because maybe someone operating a boom mic got sick, or because they think it'd be fun, and they just show up, and then what happened to me happens to them, where they just absolutely fall in love with it without ever having expected to. And then it becomes something that they want to pursue in college and that they want to pursue later in life. And that it's something that just kind of happened by chance, because that's ultimately what we're looking to do. So that's what I hope it turns into for people a little bit younger, for people like me.
Yeah, very well said. For me, I think operationally speaking, I have very clear goals. I'm not generally a person who has very clear goals or, you know, anything. I don't plan very well, but operationally, my biggest goal is to be able to implement overlap. So where we are as a company right now, we have sort of a sprinting model. We have a script, usually from Bryce. We all sort of get together on that script. We summon the forces of heaven and earth, and we push the project through to completion. And then we're back to neutral. And then we repeat that process a couple times, and well, that's where we are now. We're sort of back in neutral. I mean, obviously, Bryce and I aren't. We get to clean up afterwards and do the editing. But the biggest goal for me would be to be able to, like we've talked about before, sort of offload some of what we do, and by doing so, be able to overlap projects. Because we have people who love being on set, people who want to be on set all of the time. I know I'm one of them. But we also have people who want to be writers, and we want them to keep writing. We want them to keep letting their creative juices flow. But in the way we work right now, there's obviously a limit on that because we can only produce one thing at a time. We are one team, and you know, we can only really do those sprints. So hopefully in 12 months time, we're at a point operationally and as a team where we can, you know, have another script cooking in pre-production, so that once we wrap this project that we're on, we can just go straight into the next one. And, you know, obviously it's a grueling process and rest is valuable. I'm not fond of it, but some people are. But I'd like to be able to keep moving and be more efficient in our production. And then I guess in terms of growth, we take what comes. We've been really, really lucky to have a lot of eyes on us right now. And obviously we have Sarah to thank for that and all of her hard work building the brand out of nothing, which thank you, Sarah. And, you know, we've been given opportunities that other people haven't, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're trying to give back and share our voice with the community. But all we've ever been about fundamentally is running with it. We have a chance to do something really special here, and we're running with it. And I'm really proud to be a part of that. So I hope we just keep running with it.
Yeah, that's great. You can't see, but I am very, I'm very grateful that you guys came on the call today. And as the camera battery dies, the 30-minute long camera battery has died, which means it's the end of today's episode. If you're listening on Spotify, you can head over to the YouTube video, and in the description, you will find links to all of 178 Blank Productions' social media, including their YouTube, so you can check out their latest short film, as well as Dino's Kingdom, which I believe will be coming out sometime soon. I want to thank you, Sarah, Bryce, and Andrew, for coming on today's episode. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with every project you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
No
Can
problem.
we plug
Yes.
178blank.com? All of the information is there. Find it, love it.
And contribute to our Patreon, please. We can get real money.